Well, we're joined now from Jerusalem by Avi Mayer, who's editor of the Jerusalem Journal. And Avi, you're very welcome to the programme this evening. So for 9 weeks now, Israel has prevented any aid, food, water, medical supplies from entering Gaza, starving 2 million people. Can you understand why people say this is collective punishment? Our own Taoiseach, Prime Minister, saying today, it's clearly a war crime what Israel is doing.
Well, Sarah, it's undoubtedly true that there is genuine suffering in Gaza. We've seen the scenes of deprivation taking place there, alongside other scenes of overflowing markets and ample food stores. And I think that is perhaps explained by the fact that much of the aid that has entered Gaza over the past year and a half has in fact been seized by Hamas, which then utilizes it in one case to feed its own fighters, and of course enable them to continue their combat against Israel, and in the other to sell it to the people of Gaza who need it the most, often at a very high premium. And so the plan that was unveiled yesterday by the Israeli government seeks to establish a mechanism that would bypass Hamas and enable that aid to get directly to the people of Gaza. That's what we're talking about here.
And is that a justification then in order to make sure that aid doesn't get to the 18,000 Hamas fighters, to starve 2 million people in the process?
Well, I'm not here to justify or to reject the actions of the Israeli government. I'm a journalist. I'm here to analyze the situation. That is the argument that has been made, that in fact the aid has been making its way to Hamas rather than to the people of Gaza. We've heard complaints for quite a long time now of shortages of various kinds in Gaza as a result of shortages coming in to that territory. And that is directly attributable to the fact that it is Hamas that seizes that aid, again, to feed its own fighters and then to sell whatever remains to the people of Gaza at a tremendous premium.
Meanwhile, Israel has today unveiled a plan to invade Gaza, force the best part of 2 million people from what is left of their homes, in a lot of places from tents, to the south of the Strip, to Rafah. They'd all have to go there en masse, and for Israel to occupy the Strip indefinitely. How does that amount to anything but a plan for forced displacement of almost an entire population?
Well, experience has shown that when Israel engages in military activity against Hamas in the Gaza Strip and then vacates those territories, Hamas tends to reemerge. It utilizes those territories that have been vacated in order to re-engage with Israel and attack Israelis. The plan as put forward seeks to avoid that by essentially moving the civilian population to a specific area, enabling Israel to operate strictly against the Hamas militants that are present in those territories that have been vacated, and ensuring that the civilians themselves are spared. Now, whether that can go on indeed indefinitely, I think is quite questionable. I don't think there's a great deal of an appetite in Israel for an indefinite occupation of the Gaza Strip. Of course, you'll find some extreme voices that claim otherwise. They're vastly unrepresentative of the stance of the Israeli public, and we'll have to see what the coming weeks and months bring.
Can I ask you about the aid, the plan for aid then, and you referred to it there, which is that all the aid would be given to the Palestinian population who have now been displaced to the south and will be controlled by Israel only. How exactly do you see that working?
Well, the full details have not been disclosed. We understand that there is the plan to establish some kind of an international foundation involving the United States, Israel, and perhaps other countries, as well as philanthropic organizations, aid organizations, and others that would be responsible for the distribution of the aid, that mechanisms would be put in place to ensure that it was getting specifically to the civilians rather than to Hamas. One of the proposals that I heard about is that representatives of individual families would be invited to come down to the aid distribution area. They would receive that aid directly rather than having it channeled through Hamas. We'll have to see what details actually emerge in the days to come.
Aid agencies are saying they won't cooperate, that this will lead to danger for civilians and turn humanitarian aid into a military tool. Are they right?
Well, I think it's rather unfortunate for the past year and a half, those very aid agencies have failed to develop a mechanism that prevents the aid from falling into the hands of Hamas. That is why this plan is being developed. If they have another plan, they're certainly welcome to present it. But this is the plan that's been developed by Israel in concert with its U.S. allies and perhaps others as well, to ensure that aid does reach the people who need it the most, which of course are the people of Gaza.
So if this plan finally, Avi, doesn't work, will Israel continue its forced blockade, its starvation of 2 million civilians?
Well, again, it's important to note that the restrictions that have been placed on the aid at this time are meant to prevent that aid from reaching the people who, of course, are causing the suffering in Gaza, which, of course, is Hamas. I can't speak to what Israel will or won't do. I'm not going to speculate here. But I think it's important to realize that that aid must reach the individuals who need it the most, of course, the people of Gaza, while ensuring the security of the people of Israel and doing whatever is possible to ensure that Hamas doesn't pose a threat to the people of Israel or the people of Gaza ever again.
Avi Mayer, thank you very much for joining us on the programme this evening. Miriam.
Thank you.